Well. It's been a minute. It's been a minute since we last uploaded, but it's episode 7 of Stripes and Pints, or Strikes and Pints, depending how you view it. Football News Podcast. Beckett as well. Chris McGowan here. We have a lot to cover. Simple as that. A lot has happened in the football world in our absence due to us being busy, having a lot of stuff going on towards the end of the semester. But there's so much to talk about, and we're going to try and fill everything in our usual 25-30 minute gap. But first, Becca, how are we doing? How are we doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited. We got some big games coming up this next couple weeks. It's exciting. We've had a little bit of a break, but we got some Prem finishing, then we got Champions League, and then of course Nations League. But I'm glad to be back.
Same here. Let's get right into it. So first and foremost, obviously the Champions League. I remember we did our brackets like a couple months ago, and we had an El Clasico final, only for both teams not even make the final. Okay, Inter surprised everyone. You have them beating Bayern, which I give you props for, but I did not think they could beat Barcelona. And whenever you score 7 goals, like the aggregate was 7-6 for Inter. You score 6 goals and still lose if you're Barca. That's just devastating. Like that is so unlucky.
I mean, it's unfortunate, given the timing for Barcelona, right? Koundé was hurt, and then I think they had some other injuries back there, so it wasn't great. But that was obviously, we got to talk about, that was just a phenomenal tie. Both games were amazing. Both ones going up early, right, and then kind of holding on to a draw, and then they finally able to win it in that second one. But those were just phenomenal games to get to win this.
And there were injuries on both sides. So you mentioned Koundé. Lewandowski got hurt for Barcelona. Lautaro Martinez got hurt for Inter, but he came back and played the second leg on like a sore hamstring. But all those goals, like a lot of those goals are like bangers. Like they weren't like, just your ordinary tap-ins. You had some of those, but there were a lot of banger goals.
Yeah, I guess definitely the thing that I think was most interesting is I think especially after the first tie, everyone kind of walked away like, wow, that was phenomenal from Barcelona, specifically Yamal, right? That was kind of the focus. But the other day it was 3-3, right? It was a tie game coming off, even as good as he was and as good as they played. And I think that was kind of what we saw is what Inter's been able to do is they find a way to score, right? Like it's not, maybe it's not as pretty and you don't come away thinking they're the better team, right? I think after this, I still think Barcelona is probably the better team, but they didn't win. And that's the reality of it. And like you said, it's just some really good goals great goals from both teams, to be fair. Rafinha had a couple great ones. And it was just overall great to watch.
Yeah, I think my favorite one was Lamine Yamal is in that first leg. How I posted on Twitter, I'm like, guys, we gotta have a conversation about this. I watched the slow-mo replay, and he with his left foot, in like one movement, he cut the ball and was able to get behind it and curl it in. And like, I can't explain it. You have to watch it to see what I'm talking about. But it was just an insane goal. I'm like, this kid, say it again, he's 17. How is he doing this? Like, this isn't normal to see at all. And we talked about it, how, we were young when Messi and Ronaldo were playing. We feel like this is the time. Like, this might be our player that we grew up watching for years to come.
The one thing that I always just take away is how simple it looks for him to kick the ball in so many different ways. And I know that sounds weird, but like you see him just put shots on target in every way you can like imagine someone doing it. And it looks so effortless. Like the ball just touches his foot and it goes where he wants to go. Right. When he dribbles, it's like they bring 2 defenders every time. That's what they were doing both legs. They're like, we're just putting 2 on him. But it never ends with him giving up the ball. It's him drawing a foul or getting past both of them somehow every time. It's just ridiculous. But one thing I will say, it's rare that, a team gives up 6 goals overall, 3 in both games, and you're like, phenomenal performance by the goalie. But, there were like 3 where that you could have seen Yamal putting in the back of the net. I think Jan ended up with 7 saves in that second game or something like that. That was just a phenomenal performance, but it is hilarious. It's weird to say that after he gave up 6 goals at the end of the day.
Yeah, two things. First off, we're gonna go back to your point about Yamal and having all these shots on target. I think it's very unique, and I wouldn't say rare, but I really haven't seen a team as high profile as Barcelona basically have their whole squad run through a 17-year-old. Like that offense is running through Yamal. And I don't think I've seen that before. It just shows the amount of trust that they have within the 17-year-old. It's like, that's just insane. Second, Yamal had a shot on target in the second leg, I believe the 91st minute, which would have made it 4-2 and sealed Barcelona going to play in the Champions League final. But the goalie, Somner, made an amazing save. Like, he got just a couple fingertips on it. Yamal was going to curl it in. And it's like you said, if you allow 6 goals and still have an amazing performance, I mean, hey, what else can you say?
I mean, yeah, no one's gonna walk away getting mad at him for how he performed, right? But I mean, as you're talking about it, it's interesting because there are times when Barcelona's offense looks a little bit out of rhythm, maybe, and it is just because when they can't get it to Yamal, like it's like we know how talented these players are, and they don't have to. Like they can do it on their own, but it is hilarious to see that they're like trying to force it to a 17-year-old when you have Rafinha, right? You have Pedri, you have De Jong up front, and you're like, no, where's the kid? We need him to be doing something for us. And you can't even be mad at the strategy because it does work. It creates a somewhat of an opportunity, it feels like, every time he touches the ball.
Now, my question is, obviously, I'm a fan. You know, I'm not like some manager or some analyst. With Yamal, why don't people just force him right? Like, it sounds so simple. Because every goal I've seen, it's a cut back to the left, and he curls it in. He can curl it in from the bottom. He curl it in the top corner. He'll find a way to curl it in. But I feel like, just from a casual point, shouldn't people like force him to the right? Like, that's how it's easier than said and done.
I know that. I mean, when I watched the first legs, Luke's version was just start kicking him, like just foul him. Like at this point, you just got to make him feel uncomfortable or something like that. I have to assume that that's what their teams are doing the whole time, is trying to force him right, and he's just good enough to get back his left. I mean, the other thing I will say is that I feel like when you force him right and just kind of force him to the baseline, he just puts a cross in. And especially if Lewandowski's healthy, that's ridiculously dangerous, but it still is. Like, he's still putting the ball close to somebody every time. So I think that's why he definitely ends up with a lot of crosses, I think, in both of these legs, where for how much he touched the ball, that maybe you thought maybe you would have more shots. So I think they're attempting to, but there are some times where you see there's 2 defenders right on him, and maybe they think it's 2 defenders. Maybe they give up a little, like, I don't know, but it's somehow he gets through to his left in possible scenarios, it seems.
Yeah, I feel like with Yamal, we've seen it a lot in which he loves to cross, or at least go those long passes with his right foot on the outside of his boot. Like, he'll love just to do those. Yeah, I remember he had a beautiful one, I think last year, that was like a 40-yard pass just on the outside of his right boot, and he curled it in perfectly, I think, to either Lewandowski or Rafinha. But he loves to do that. But Yamal is just such a complete player. It's gonna be such a fun time watching him play. We're gonna shift gears to the other side, Arsenal and PSG. Okay, didn't have the fireworks as the other semifinal, but there were some moments, especially in that second leg. PSG defeated Arsenal. I believe it was 3-1 on aggregate. Arsenal definitely had a couple chances. That Saka miss still is in my mind. Back in the 70th minute, but overall PSG, I don't think many people saw this coming when the Champions League started, before that Liverpool match. But once they beat Liverpool, it kind of just set the tone for the Parisians, and it really started to catch their eyes about how good this PSG team really is.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's not what I had on my cards, right, when that started to see them, for them to take them out. I do think once we got to this leg, this is kind of maybe somewhat along the lines of what we expected, right? I think we both think that PSG at this point is probably the better team than Arsenal. On Arsenal's side, I think you got to look at it and just be like, there's got to be an ability to score goals a little bit easier. You got to, like, you shouldn't have to work maybe as hard as they are having to in these tough games, right? And of course, they scored 6 against Madrid, so they've found a way or 5 or what. But yeah, I mean, it creates a very interesting final, and one that doesn't involve our top 2 leagues, which is going to be great for everyone.
I love how it's people call it the Farmers League final. I think the PSG Twitter admin was going crazy with that. Like, oh, we're Farmer League. Look at us. You got 2 teams in Farmer Leagues in the final. It should be an exciting one. I'm anticipating it to be low scoring, just knowing how finals go. Most times they're low scoring. I will have to lean with PSG. I think this is
Yeah.
their year. Luis Enrique has done a phenomenal job. Not to take away from Benghazi and Inter, but I think PSG is the more complete team in my opinion. I think they'll win this final. I'll go 2-1, maybe 2-0 as an early goal in the first half, and then they get like a late goal to seal it. But I think it will definitely be under 3.5 goals going for PSG.
Yeah, I mean, I still don't even know if I've decided who I want. I think on one hand, I definitely agree that we will come away with this. PSG was the better team. That's my thought. I think they, and I think that's kind of been the takeaway in every game they've played for about 5 months. So it's not, but I agree. Low scoring 2-1 feels like the right thing. Part of me is like Inter scores and then PSG gets one back maybe, and then it's who scores the third one. Man, okay,
It's
I'm gonna
tough.
say PSG because I think it's their year. I think right, like everything is going right for them, and everything's going wrong for Inter right now, right? I mean, they had a dribble on the cards if you go back 2 weeks, and now it looks like 0 for 3 might be very plausible here. So, man, it's gonna be exciting.
Oh yeah.
And probably a low scoring affair. I would definitely agree, but we'll have some sparks. Hopefully we can it's just a great game. That's all I can ask for at this point.
And the thing that sucks about Champions League here in America, the games start at 3 o'clock, and it's summer. People got to work. This is. I talked about it like a few months ago. This is the hardest thing to do: work and try to watch a game because it just doesn't go together. It just doesn't work. It's impossible.
Well, I don't work weekends, so I'll be fine with that schedule.
When you're in the sports world, man, nothing. You're working every day.
You're always working weekends at that point.
Saturdays, Sundays, it don't matter. Like yesterday, I had to go to Akron, and the Europa League final was going on. I'm a Spurs fan. That's my first team, true at heart. Shout out Spurs. Come on, you Spurs. And I had to listen to the game on it was talk radio. It's this like British network, and oh my god, they were clowning Rasmus Højlund for Man United. Like I swear, like half the halftime segment was like, if you're Man United, how do you get Højlund out? If you're Man United, what do you do with him? Like they were just thrashing on him. I was like, damn, he's really that bad. Oh,
I mean, they were making. It's not even just Rashford. I felt like when I was watching it, they were kind of both. Everyone was just kind of taking jokes at both sides. I mean,
oh yeah.
at during the halftime show, like they asked him, what do you think? And the first thing he said was, "Well, this is very clearly the 16th and 17th place teams or whatever." Like, which is, I mean, it's hilarious that two clubs that size or that low, but they're competing for a European trophy at the same time. And I think obviously this game was huge for fans of both sides, especially for Spurs fans, given the result. And I think for everyone else's fans, it was kind of just hilarious
Oh yeah.
that this is what the Europa League final is. It is two of the worst teams in the Prem this year. It's I mean, it's great for Spurs. They got the trophy. That's about all I can feel is fair to say.
First one in 17 years. This Europa League final, there was a lot of implications on the line, and it was arguably, it was definitely a poor final. And like you said, you can tell these are the bottom teams in the Prem. There's a lot that goes on with it because if you're 16th and 17th in the Prem, a team like Man United, a prestigious going against a joke banter team like Tottenham, it's like if you lose this final, you are never, ever going to hear the end of it from the other side. And it happens to be Man United. The joke is, how do you let Tottenham win a trophy?
Yeah.
Seriously, how do you let Spurs win a trophy? That might be like you're in like the pit, that you're in the bottom of the pit after that. Like I don't think you can recover from that ever.
I mean, United is just really thankful that all of the teams that have come up, in the last 3 years have been so beyond terrible that they have been able, that they're just fine sitting there. Because, they're in what, fourth from 17th or 16th,
They are.
but there's 20 points clear of Sheffield and those bottom teams. So
They are
they're,
16.
yeah, they're just a hilarious team to watch because you see Bruno do some great things out there, and there's no one around him to really do anything for him to help him. Like there's nothing. And, Hoyland and Garnacho might score some cool goals sometimes, but they don't really do anything the rest of the time. They kind of just exist. I mean, I will say I think United had one chance. Hoyland had a header, and there was a phenomenal save by Van de Ven. I mean, that was ridiculous. So
I remember that one.
That was ridiculous. That was probably like the most exciting point in the game because even that goal, I don't even like. It was kind of ridiculous, but yeah, I mean, it's huge for Tottenham fans, and it's huge for me because I get to just make fun of United fans. So there's, it works out. Everyone wins in this scenario except United fans and
Arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, I know. Does Chelsea fans hate Spurs like heavenly too? I know Mike was really mad.
Yeah, there's a lot of animosity.
I think it's more funny that United lost this game than it is annoying that for Spurs to win a trophy. That would be my viewpoint on it. But it is hilarious. It's just like a little toilet bowl game we got at the end of the season for everyone. That's hilarious, and I'm sure it's not funny for those fans of the other teams in La Liga and the Bundesliga that actually wanted to win the trophy. But it's funny for us,
Oh yeah. I mean, you look at Man United. I saw this on Twitter. I don't know if it's true. They've gained only 9 points since the start of the year in the Prem. 9 points. They had 30 going into January, and they're sitting at 39 right now. I don't know if that's true. It sounded true, though, the way how they've been playing.
It wouldn't surprise you.
It would not surprise me. But I think that the new strat is to, play piss poor in league play, and just, I should say that. Make the Europa League and go to the Champions League via that. Just qualify for Europa, tank in the Prem, and go to Champions League. Eh?
The hard part that you face there is that the strategy, it just worked for Spurs. It just didn't work for United, and now they have to spend next year with no money trying to find a way to field a competent roster. Now, I'm sure it's fine because let's be honest, Leeds is just going back down. It's not, they're not really that worried, but they're not here to compete. They have to find, now they're sitting here like, how do we even get ourselves in a position to make Europe next year? Because you're just so far behind these top 6 teams that we're seeing compete for Champions League this year.
There's a lot of chaos going on in the Prem. I will say this though before we get into the Prem European spots, which is still very confusing in my mind. I will say this: this has been the season of the curse being killed. Right? We've seen so many curses being broken. Here's just a list: Tottenham, 17 years; Bologna, 51 years; Newcastle, 70 years; Deventer, 92, and the one and only, believe it or not, I got it right here. Wait. Crystal Palace, 119 years. I mean, Harry Kane as well won a trophy. This season, man. This season's been crazy for all these teams that have curses.
Mm-hmm.
But
they're all broken.
But we go into our next topic, a very confusing one in my mind. These European spots in the Prem, these are very, very confusing. You have a team 17 that's going to the Champions League. This happens. You're going to have your usual top 4, in this case, Liverpool, Arsenal, City, and Newcastle, as of right now, are going to be going to the Champions League. Chelsea, they played in the Conference League final, I believe, on the 27th. I believe that's right. They play Real Betis. So that's where it gets, because if Chelsea wins the Conference League final, but finish 7th in the Prem, they're 5th right now, then there's an extra spot guaranteed for the Prem to go to European play. Now, I'll let you. Is that right, Beck? Did I say that right?
Yeah. So, okay. I think currently the Prem has 9 spots, and this is, to me, is the most confusing part of soccer, is understanding European qualification. This is because it is ridiculous. From my understanding, the Prem has 5 guaranteed Champions League spots, like the top 5, and now Spurs have now earned their qualification. Along with that, there's one Europa League spot for, I guess, sixth place goes to Europa League. But if you win the Conference League, obviously you would get that go. So that's where there's potentially another one. But right now, I would say we're at 7 because you're 6 Champions League and a Europa League. Then I believe right now, technically, Newcastle has the Conference League spot for winning the FA Cup. But I do believe, or Carabao, yes, sorry. I do believe under the assumption that they will not place 7th, or that then someone else gets that spot because they'll have a Champions League spot. So that would be 8, and then Crystal Palace has a 9th they get a Europa League spot for winning FA Cup.
Yes.
So right now, it should be 6 Champions League teams, 2 Europa League teams, and a Conference League team. Yeah.
Yes.
But Chelsea falling behind could give a 10th place. I don't foresee that happening, but I hope it does. That'd be hilarious if they could just fall down a little bit. That'd be really fun.
All this chaos, man. Like, this is definitely the most confusing aspects of soccer anywhere are the pyramids of soccer and the qualifications. That is the most confusing thing. The pyramid's all right because once you know it, then you're like, okay, that makes sense. But the qualifications, especially in a scenario like this, when a league can possibly send up to 10 teams, and that winning these cups guarantees this and that, and that's where it gets really confusing. But like you said, Chelsea kind of determines a lot. They have a lot of influence. I think they'll win the Conference League, which would automatically give them the Europa League spot. However, they might finish top 5, which would guarantee them a Champions League spot, and that Europa League spot would go to the team below them, which I think would be Aston Villa. I'm looking at it right now. I think. See, even I don't even know. I don't even know. I mean, but I think that's how it would go.
I mean, the best way to look at it, right, is that there's our top 7 teams right now that are all technically competing for Champions League spots, are all in Europe regardless, along with Palace and Tottenham. And then I believe, depending on where Chelsea ends up, you would end up, I guess, Brighton would, I guess it would be Brighton. Brighton would also get a spot in the Conference League, I think.
That would make a lot of sense. If Chelsea can finish, I think they'll finish top 5. So I think that anything could happen on the last day.
Yeah.
But it's definitely confusing, I have to say.
Yes. And that's the other thing to look out in terms of these games. I think it's pretty – Liverpool, Arsenal's 1 and 2. City is probably going to be 3rd. They just need to tie to get 3rd. But I believe – I mean, they're pretty – I think they probably have Champions League pretty much locked. I guess not necessarily. And then Newcastle hosts Everton. Chelsea is at Forest. And then Villa is at United. So the Forest-Chelsea game is probably determining which one of those teams qualifies. Now, I will say Chelsea just needs to tie that game because all of those teams are tied, whereas Forest is 1 point below them. But the Newcastle definitely just control. Newcastle and Chelsea, I think, control. It's all on them. If they win, they're good no matter what. Villa and Forest would need some help, but Forest can help themselves, of course.
I think there's a scenario in which Nottingham Forest would go to the Conference League. I believe if things stand. Can you confirm that? Do you know that?
I'm trying to. So they're in 7th right now.
7th. If the top 5 would go Champions League.
I think if you were to say like Newcastle, Chelsea, and Villa won, just for like simplicity.
So if things stand right now.
Yeah, so that would mean Liverpool, Arsenal, City, Newcastle, and Chelsea would go to the Champions League, along with Spurs, and then Villa would be 6th, so they'd be Europa with Palace, and then Forest, because they're 7th, would then be Conference League.
I want to say that I think that would be a good fit for Nottingham Forest. I think just the way how they've been this year, believe it or not, there was a time where they were 2nd in the Prem, right behind Liverpool. Crazy times. Now they're 7th. I think them in the Conference League would be a good fit. I think, they're a pretty decent team, but I don't think they're good enough to be in the Europa League.
Yeah. I think the best, like what looks like the fairest option on paper would be if Newcastle and Chelsea win, and those are Champions League teams, and then Villa getting Europa League. I mean, obviously they just had like a decent run Champions League, so that'd be fine for them too. But I think if you're looking at how good you expect these teams maybe to continue next year, I think that this has ended up being fair. But as you pointed out, I mean, how far Forest has fallen, I think it was around 2 months ago. I saw someone tweeted out like a predictor where you could go through and predict all the games and see what you thought the standings would end up at this point. And I mean, first of all, back then Villa wasn't even in the conversation, so props to them for getting here. They were like not even like on that options. But at the time, Forrest was so far ahead, and even he's got all the merch now.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, but the Forrest were so far ahead that even with like having a tougher schedule than other teams, I think they've still like really kind of had to do the bare minimum to get like third or fourth. Whereas City had a really end of the year schedule was really easy, and I kind of just thought they were going to win all of them, which they basically have ended up doing up to this point to get third. Newcastle's basically kind of done the same thing. So, but really, it is kind of every team has one to end the season. I would say Forest is really the only one that's fallen. I mean, Arsenal as well. They probably should have clinched second place a while ago, and it came down to week 37 for them, which is kind of surprising. I would say. I think they should have had that one clinched a while ago. But
I think the best part about this is no matter what happens in Europe, like any tournament, Arsenal's catching a stray every single time. Every single time Arsenal is catching a stray.
I'm not trying to be like, I know what I know, and there was some point where I looked and I swear they were like a good 8 points up on City, like they were gonna get second lollygag and they didn't have to do anything, and they lollygagged a little too much, and it could have. I mean, again, it's costing them would have been falling to third place. Like it's not really anything too serious, but. It's kind of I really thought they were going to be in the same position as Liverpool. Liverpool's just been sitting on their couch doing nothing for the past month. Like
Liverpool is like Drake and God's plan, handing out 3 points. Hey, you guys need 3 points? Here y'all go. We'll lose this match. You guys need 3? Here you go.
I'm kind of annoyed. We had to play Liverpool like early. I wanted them late when they were like. It's all even in the country. I wouldn't be like you already won the league. You're out of everything else. Like it's kind of hilarious.
This match they have against Crystal Palace may be just like a whole party for both sides because it means nothing. I mean, for Crystal Palace and Liverpool, everything's already determined. Liverpool's won the league. Crystal Palace won the FA Cup. They play each other in the Community Shield in August anyway. Why try in this game? Just have fun. And I think it'll be very interesting to see how this game will play out between Liverpool and Crystal Palace.
Yeah, well, I mean, Palace, could finish as high as 9th, it seems, or sorry, 8th. So or 10th. So if they really want 10th place, they can put in that effort. I did see which this is something that I've never really paid attention to, the points. Like Liverpool is going to win on probably 83, 86 points, something right in there. But I was like all the past recent ones. I mean, really, it's mostly just all the City dominance. But like this is really low point total since I think the only one I saw that like recently that's this low with I think Leicester's year. They were pretty low as well. But
last year, City won with 91. Arsenal had 89. If you go to 2022, 2023, City had 89, Arsenal 84. There was one where, so 2021, 2022 was 93, 92 in favor of City over Liverpool.
I was going to say, I thought there were a lot of years on there that were in the 90s, but it'd be kind of funny if Liverpool walks out of this with 83. Now, it might be fair if I looked at the schedule and we're like, okay, what if they were trying? And you'd be like, okay, they'd probably get another couple more points if they really had to put the effort in. But I think the main thing I think it showed was, and you can think of it either way, but just how close we have like 2nd through 7th is that there isn't a second team that is like, clearly stepping themselves above other teams. I think we think of City as the team to do that, and it's a rough year for them. So we'll see, maybe next year is just a little better. But I think the big thing is Arsenal not like this is where you look at this, if you're like Liverpool winning on 83, like what happened to Arsenal where like they've beaten that the last 3 years or at least 2 of them, right? So that was available for them. So, but it's interesting to see kind of just how balanced out that top of the Prem is right now.
Outside. Sorry.
Behind Liverpool, I suppose, in terms of the table. But
I dropped my pen. I'm sorry. The thing that stands out looking at the table right now, Arsenal, 19 wins, 4 losses, 14 draws. 14.
so,
That is absurd. 14 draws. I mean, I think that's the thing right there. Even if you win, let's say 12, you win 6 of those games. You're tied right now with Liverpool going to the final match day on Championship Sunday.
I mean, so obviously I'd have to look, more in depth at the game specifically. But my best guess from looking at the tables, they've only given up 33 goals, right? Lowest in the Prem. So their defense has been, but they've only scored 67, which, not to say that's the 5th highest total. It's not ridiculous. But what that, to me, makes me wonder, along with those draws, is if I look through, we'll see a lot of games where they have some 6-0 wins against Wolves and sorry, I didn't mean to throw Spurs straight. That's on me. Against Wolves and Ipswich, and then you'll get, once you see the top of the table teams, it's like 1-0 if they win, or they're just getting draws out of it. So I mean, I'm looking here though. The last couple of months, they drew Brentford, drew Everton, drew United, drew Forest. They drew Brighton at one point. They drew Villa as well. So all these chances they had to pick up these points and put some pressure on Liverpool. They drew Everton both times this year, in fact, actually.
Oh, my gosh.
And Chelsea both times.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think they might have, all these top teams, they have drawn at some point. They drew Brighton both times this year, which is unrelated, but they drew City at one point. They drew Liverpool, drew Chelsea both times. I think they did go 2-0 against Newcastle, and they drew Villa. So all these point chances where they had to pick up points and put some, distance above the teams below them and pressure on Liverpool, and they couldn't score enough goals. A lot of 0-0s, a lot of 1-1s.
Yeah, I mean, you saw those teams with the Brightons. I see a draw against Fulham, draw against Man United, like you said. Those are the teams that you have to win against. If you want to be a top team, you got to beat those middle of the pack teams, especially United. Even though they're not middle of the pack, you got to beat United this year. I understand it's a tough opponent. I understand that, but those are points you let slip away from you. We're going to switch gears real quick. Go to the Serie A table. This one has been absolutely crazy the past couple of weeks. Going into the final match day, Napoli is 1 point clear of Inter. There's a lot of drama that happened last week in which Inter could have overtaken Napoli for that first place spot. There's even drama that these teams would play a 39th game against each other in case they tied. But that's not looking like the case. That shouldn't be the case. Napoli, 1 point clear of Inter. Atlanta, they're now 4 points behind Inter. I think we cursed them, honestly, because they were doing really bad when we started this.
Yeah, that one's on us too. Definitely.
I don't feel bad.
Yeah, this one, again, these are the type of things where I hate saying things that just sound and be speculating, what's going on in that locker room. But I do have to be like, okay, Inter, given how you played the last month in the Serie A, this was not your primary focus, right? And I understand that you're trying to win Champions League, but if you don't win the Champions League, you're gonna look back and feel really stupid because you threw away 2 other competitions fighting for that. Now, again, I'm not saying that's the entire thing, but they are just pushing out draws and losses against teams that they weren't doing that before. And it felt like every time they had a chance to put, for a while it was every chance Napoli had a chance to catch up a little bit, they would throw it away. Now when Inter has a chance to do it back to them or hold on to that lead, it's another loss. I mean, looking back, they lost against Bologna and Roma. Those were the 2 that allowed them to get overtaken. And then they just drew Lazio, as you mentioned, this past week. As far as I'm concerned, in Napoli, whatever Napoli do, Inter might just do the same thing. That seems to be the path we're on right now. Napoli might lose 2-0, Inter will lose 3-0. But I will say the one thing that they will look at as the difference is they have 20 more goals than Napoli.
Whew.
Napoli does not. If you just looked at the numbers, you would not expect them to be the team coming out with the win. And also, if you just watch them play, I feel like you expect Inter to have been better, given how good they've been against the best teams in the world at a different competition. But
that was a topic we had a couple weeks ago. Was when you're playing in all these competitions, right? You're playing your domestic cup, you're playing your league, you happen to make Champions League, and you start going deep. Things start to get really, really tough because those good matchups, instead of playing, oh, we're going to play this team, we're going to play Everton, we're going to play West Ham, we'll play Arsenal. No, you're playing Bayern, you're playing Barcelona, you're playing Napoli, and you're playing AC Milan for, the Italia Copa. Like, all these matchups are stacking up. I definitely do agree that there's a lot of decision making and a lot of prioritizing. And okay, maybe we're going to put a lot of our focus in the Champions League and maybe take it away a little bit from the league play and just hope something goes our way. That's a tough thing. That's a really tough thing to manage and maintain.
I mean, normally the big way you see it is when you're talking the early rounds of the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, it's the type of thing you don't really care about. And that's why we end up in situations where Palace is playing in the final. Great for them. Great victory, right? But that's how you end up in those situations because you have teams like, last year City got knocked out of the Carabao Cup by Newcastle in a game where Newcastle we played starters, they played nobody, right? And that's just kind of the reality of it. But for it to be, because you're taking away focus for Champions League at the very end of the year, so then you're taking focus away from a semifinal and the league that you're in first place of by 3 points. I do think that part of it is playing in Italy's kind of hurts you because you get used to that little break. When I'm looking at that schedule, right, they've performed very well, right, in the Champions League, obviously. And then in league play, they've been able to beat the bottom teams with just fine. But in terms of, right, they lost to Milan in the Cup, they lost to Lazio, they lost to Roma, they lost to Bologna. Those are all upper level teams in Italy. So those are the teams that they're struggling with right now. It's not the best teams in the world who they're putting all their energy again, and they're still being able to beat these low level Italy teams. But the mid-table ones where they're, I guess, just not doing enough preparation, whatever it is. And again, I could look at the lineups and we might be there and say, oh, okay. Look, maybe Lautaro hasn't played in a month.
There's some resting going on here and there.
Yes. But so there's obviously more to it, but they got to win one of these things, right? At this point.
We got to.
You had 2 months left and you're in all three competitions still. Win one of them. I think that's got to be your mindset at this point. So you got 2 games left. You win those 2 games. That's what you got.
It all happens tomorrow. It starts tomorrow, I would say.
Yeah.
This is very unique because usually, Championship Sunday, that determines everything. Tomorrow, Inter and Napoli play at 2:45 p.m. on Paramount Plus. I will be not working, so I can actually watch these games. But obviously, the Napoli has the easier matchup going against Cagliari, if I said that right. Looking at the bottom of the table, 9, and 19. Inter F Como, who seems to be about middle of the pack. So obviously Napoli also being at home too. Script writers going crazy. But I think Napoli has the advantage, but they definitely it'll be very unique to see how this goes tomorrow.
If I had to guess, I think we'll probably see both teams win and nothing changes. That's what I would expect, especially given the break they probably had a little bit. But it really does suck we're not going to get that one more game. Once you sent me that they could tie and they would play it, I was like, oh, we need that. And then of course they went and messed up the point totals and messed it up so he can't get it. Which that's just a little bit annoying on my end. I was really excited for that potential, but they'll get, that's one final game and then around a week and a half off before their Champions League final. I will say the one thing, when we're talking about the other, managing all these things on the other end, you have PSG, who's basically only been participating in the Champions League for about 2 months, having been so far ahead in their league and not even being in the cup. So on the other hand, you have a team that is as well rested as they could be and going to be as well prepared as possible.
We saw it in the second leg against Arsenal. Dembele didn't even play until the 65th minute. He was brought on as a sub. I was at the pub. I'm watching a couple Arsenal fans. Not picking sides, but came as a neutral. I'm in London. I was like, yeah, let's go to the pub, watch the game. I'm like, yo, is Dembele hurt or something? Like, I'm not seeing him. This is the second leg of the Champions League semifinal. Now I look it up. Nah, Rose is on the bench. Like, what? And they still won.
And they still pulled it off. I mean, I didn't even think I realized that.
See?
That is kind of insane.
They're just star-studded. They have a lot of talent and
Mm-hmm.
just pure dominance. I mean, they're 19 points clear of Marseille. And it's just like,
I think this is the perfect storm for them in terms of to win this, trophy, given where they stood in the league and the cup, as I mentioned, right? Given once they beat Madrid, right? Now, obviously, we're looking at Madrid, Madrid, Arsenal, and Inter is still a very tough pass. Don't get me wrong, but I think going into it, Liverpool and Barcelona would definitely have been bigger fears in, I think, our eyes, right? So for them, they're probably happier to get. I'd be happier to get those matchups with Arsenal now, as they got through. They got through Liverpool. Now they don't have to deal with Madrid. They don't have to deal with Barcelona.
For PSG as well, they got a spicy week coming up. On Saturday, they play Reims, if I said that right, in the French Cup, and then the 31st Champions League final against.
Okay, they are still in the cup. Okay.
Yes, this is the French Cup, so the treble still online for PSG. Definitely think they have a very, very good shot of completing the treble and winning the first ever Champions League. Ici c'est Paris. I'm not a bandwagon, I promise.
He just went to Europe, guys. Don't worry.
Dude, I had a cop.
He's gonna show everything off.
Now there's one decision I will say as we conclude that is maybe a little puzzling, right? We'll say, I have a couple scarves. Okay, I feel like this one, the Crystal Palace, Aston Villa, these are neutral teams.
Might be our two Europa teams.
Yeah,
Europa, you got both of them.
They'll imagine that's the final next year.
I was going to say next year final preview.
Other one, I have I did have a Tottenham, man. But, this Chelsea scarf, I went to a game. They play this Swedish club, your Gordon. But the one that's really concerning, I look back on it. I'm so sorry.
England purchase?
I know. That's the one I was thinking. This one might be a little
bit. I mean, I couldn't walk around in Chelsea gear either, to be fair. But really, I can't walk around in England gear. That's really not.
I can't be worried. I got hang these up, bro. These are collectors, I guess.
You're just a big fan of the teams without the trophies, right?
I'm just a big fan of soccer, I guess.
It's England's turn. You got your Spurs one, so now you're transferring.
What if I'm the one who's like breaking these curses?
It's possible, but I don't see the relation to Palace's curse or Newcastle's curse getting broken.
Well,
I guess you do have the power. You do have the Palace.
I bought this one before they won.
Yeah.
So that's my Palace affiliation. The Newcastle one, podcast, we'll put it like that.
Okay, yeah.
We'll say that.
Okay.
The Chelsea one, I have their scarf and they won the Conference League. Woohoo!
You have every winner. I mean,
I did, which means 2026 World Cup.
Ooh, is there like something else before that? They got Europe.
Are they in the Nations League? I have no idea.
I don't think so. They got Euros before that.
Euros will be in 2028.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be that guy, but things are kind of, pointing in that direction. But the way things are going, if Chelsea loses and PSG loses, everything's off the table. Everything's off the table.
I'm trying to take a look at the Nations League.
We got
Germany,
Portugal and Germany on the 4th of June. Spain and France. Ooh, that'll be a good one on the 5th.
That's the real final.
That is Yamin versus Mbappe again. Isn't Yamin like 4-0 against Mbappe?
They're playing them for the 10th time, dude.
Mbappe gotta be sick of this dude, I think. He's like, damn,
did Madrid go 0-4 against them? Like
this year, I believe so.
They could have played more too.
Dude, that El Clasico Champions League hypothetical final. Oh my God, that would have been families.
It was beautiful in my mind. It really was.
It was. I mean, we made our brackets. I was like, all right, don't share nothing. Let's just do our brackets. And hey, we had El Clasico final. Fortunately, it didn't happen, dog.
It's basically the World Cup final again. If you basically, so it's
Kind
Mbappe
of, yeah.
versus Messi, kind of. But
Man, we could have had it, man.
Yeah, I can't complain with what we got. It would have been much worse if we ended up with like Madrid, Inter, or PSG, Barca. Maybe that's a little bit worse. Now we get just a fun one.
Both the PSG Barca one would have been interesting.
I'm not like I was all on. I just was just throwing it in there because I know people don't like Barca. I have no issue with them, and also this is like a completely different Barca team than like previous years, and they also haven't really had that much success recently. So I feel like it's just a very different Barca situation, but. I understand the hatred towards them.
No disrespect. I think the most boring final we could have had out of the semifinals was Arsenal Inter. I think that one would have just been up. News fast, bro. I think. I mean, this PSG Inter one, it's not far behind in my opinion, but at least PSG is exciting.
I think we just didn't want to have to watch Arsenal play. I think that's
I think everyone can agree. Like Arsenal, no.
We didn't want.
Arsenal, yes.
PSG was the important win, like right. Like obviously, Barca probably would be a little more entertaining, but PSG needed to win. Yeah. We didn't want to watch Arsenal.
Yeah, we're not Arsenal fans over here.
I don't want to watch Saka play for.
I don't want to watch Mikel Arteta lose 3-0 and go, well, we were the better team today. I think we were the better team.
No, it's 3-win with a goal off a corner. Saka gets one more assist add to the total, but it's all for naught.
I remember there's a clip of their tactics manager on the corner, like running up and down the sideline. It's like, what is he even doing? Like, I think he's just pointing just a point. Like, I don't think he's doing much.
I need someone to actually go look through and tell me how, like, what percent of their goals were like straight off set pieces. Like, can they have any ability to score otherwise?
I mean, they got Martin no Shodegaard. Oh,
I mean, it's a great one.
Hey, if they get Victor Gyökeres, they might be dangerous. They might be dangerous.
I've been told they're sinking a whole lot of millions into getting Isak in the summer, but
how would that make you feel?
I would really not approve of it personally. One, because it's like, don't go there, and two, because he's also insane. But also, I mean, I guess Wilson would be our striker at that point. But the jump off from having him is just. We're back in the Champions League. We need him. Well, not yet, but we're losing to Britain now.
Anthony Gordon, though. Yeah.
I mean, look, I love me some Gordon, but he has not been our best option this year. RV Barnes has been slightly more impactful, but
hey, don't poach my Newcastle guys. Is that right?
Yeah, I prefer to keep them. I mean, somehow Livermento's going to end up in Madrid or something crazy, something.
Right. It is transfer season. I mean, they're asking for 100 mil for Rodrigo.
Yeah. I mean, you think Trent's already hanging out in Madrid?
You
already there? Like,
maybe a day trip, That's a long flight. Madrid to Liverpool.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I did think that was insane, though, that you could just announce that he's leaving in the middle of the year. Like, I know they're not playing for anything, so it's I guess a little less weird, but it is just insane to me. You get like a month left in the season, you're like, by the way, guys, it's done for me here. I'm headed out.
Go, baby. Yeah, that was just the way how he did it was very, very interesting. Then you always have the Italian dude, Fabrizio Romano, always tweeting out stuff. I'm like, bro, like imagine a world where there's no Fabrizio. There's no Adam Schefter. There's no Shams. It's just you close your eyes, you wake up the next season, and you're like, where is Trent Alexander-Arnold? Where did he go? Why do we have Frimpong back at right back?
It'd be a lot more entertaining.
The whole Mbappe thing would have been entertaining with that.
I feel like that one. I feel like it'd be a little less in soccer in the sense that, like, when Trent's like, if Trent's gonna leave, that's where he's gonna go. Like Mbappe, I feel like everyone kind of knew it was due at some point, but
which I bet he regrets that. Bad decision by Mbappe.
I mean, yeah, but are they here if they keep him?
That's a good point. No, because he was low key. I wouldn't say he was a problem.
It's one of those things where I don't think it's necessarily all on him, but I felt like there's, at least when I'd watched him a little bit, because Newcastle was in their group last year. It felt like there's a lot of times where they had the same problem of it has to go through Mbappe, then they also struggle with sometimes just nothing going through him. It's like they had a poor balance of it. And Mbappe thrives when you can get him like in a faster paced game, in a faster paced environment, when he can get on and run, obviously. But I think there were times in those Champions League games last year when he was playing for PSG where he just wouldn't touch the ball for 30 minutes because they didn't know how to create a goal, in the sense of like when everything's in a half court environment, as you see, half court defense, half field, everyone's back there. They couldn't create with him, and they seem to be doing a much better job of it this year. While also still, when you still have Dembele, you can still get out and run. Right? He's really good at cutting into the right foot and rocketing it right back into the corner. He's really great at that. But he's definitely, and that's all to say, he did have a great year regardless. So
it's all about
it worked out for both sides, I think you could argue. But
Mbappe got his move. PSG got their success as of right now. It's all about team needs, though. Madrid needed a striker. I understand you get the best available one, but like I said before, when you're star-studded, problems arise. Look at Vinny now. Example number one.
Brazilians are hard to tell how they're going to react.
Brazilians are very unique when it comes to soccer. Look at Richarlison, man. This dude came back from injury all of a sudden and won a trophy. Like, what? I swear he was injured like 2 days ago. Now he's playing in the final.
They just, you never know what version of them you're going to get. That's kind of
the fun, jolly one or the trash one.
That's definitely one of the things that's definitely going to be interesting to look forward to, because I have to imagine, obviously, we're assuming that Trent's going there and probably another defender in some capacity, but it will be interesting to see up front if they are just sticking with that front four and just trying to figure it out, or if it also is like really hard to justify any of those players not playing. Like Rodrigo's probably
I think he's gone. I think
he's gone. I was just like, he's the one they can justify being like,
he's
get out of here.
Honestly.
Yeah. They can't. Well, Vinny, Bellingham, and Mbappe, there's no argument for you to like. You can't be like, yeah, we're getting rid of them. Like in theory, that should be maybe three. Like they could be the three best players in the world. It could be.
Good. Are they?
No, because they're all worse playing. Vinny was unreal last year. Did not carry over with Mbappe. Bellingham the same way. He was scoring every goal. He was scoring a goal a game last year. Now it's not working. So they're definitely the team to look at and see like what do you change this year to try and, because you're gonna look like you got teams right like Liverpool. You're gonna look at it and be like, well, we lost in the first round of Champions League. That's one thing. If you're Madrid, you can't lose to Barcelona 4 times in a year.
Oh yeah, that's
you do that, and that's what causes you to get out of to not be able to win a single trophy. When that happens, and then you lose 5-1 to Arsenal, you're like, okay, there's clearly a big change that we have to make somewhere.
Okay, Ancelotti gone. Insert Xabi Alonso. Be interesting, as our soccer season concludes. There'll be a lot of fun storylines and events happening next time, but we got to focus on our remaining 9 days left in the 2024-25 football season. That's episode 7. Becky Wizzle, Christian McGon. We will see you episode 8. Who knows when that'll be? Maybe next week, maybe 2 weeks from now. We don't know. We're busy. We're college kids. Don't hate us. But we thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Have a good day.